Hello everybody and welcome to this Harts podcast. This is going to be the first in a series of podcasts which we hope to produce over the next few months with some interesting guests we're going to have on. But to start with, what we're going to do is have a chat with some of our team members to see how they got into accountancy and what their current views on various issues are. I'd like to introduce you to Rebekah Willson, who runs our audit team and who started off as a junior here at Harts, and I'd like to chat to her about what she does, how she got into it, and her views on various issues at the moment. So good morning, Rebekah. How did you actually get into accountancy in the first place?
So I used to come here in the evenings after sixth form, not that many hours a week, 2, 3 maybe, just a bit of pocket money, and I used to do the admin, so obviously I got to know the staff. And when it came to applying to university, doing a UCAS application and just deciding what I wanted to do in life, I sent my CV to Melissa and David.
Melissa and David, two of the partners here.
Yeah, gave them first refusal of me, and obviously sent my CV out to some other accountancy firms in Macclesfield as well, in the local area. And yeah, they offered me a job as just an apprenticeship role.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was the first junior in the team because there wasn't any juniors back then. It was sort of Melissa and David, and then just a flat, flat system. And yeah, so I went underneath everybody.
Yes.
Just doing the odd jobs, the boring stuff. But I was enjoying it. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
So started doing bookkeeping, VAT returns, and so on. They started putting me through AAT at Macclesfield College.
And that's the accounting technicians
course?
Yes,
yeah, like the foundation level for that.
Yes.
And then that took 2.5 to 3 years, I think, and then immediately into ACCA, so Chartered Certified.
Okay.
And again, that took another sort of 3 years or so.
Yeah.
And then qualified a couple of years ago.
And how is the process of doing the qualifications these days? It's a long time since I did them, so.
It's good. So I think in comparison to what you had, it's very modular nowadays. So It's not 3 exams at once and then a big break.
Yeah.
The mixture of working and studying is difficult, but AAT was a lot easier than ACCA. So, like I say, you sort of got that foundation level to begin with.
Okay.
I think stopping sixth form where you're at school and in college for a good 6 hours a day, to then working for 7 hours a day and then having to study afterwards was a bit of a change that I had to get used to, but it's well worth it, obviously, at the end of the day. So.
And how much studying do you actually have to do, say, on a nightly or weekly basis?
Probably should do an hour, 2 hours a day, maybe.
Okay.
But I'll admit, I became a crammer and ended up booking holidays off 2 weeks before each exam and just going for it. But
and I'm sure that the work that you did during the day would help with the studying as well, because you're seeing in practice what you're actually studying. Does that help?
Yeah. So obviously when you're at college, you're learning the technical stuff, and when you're at work, you're putting it into practice. So, and obviously you can take bits and bobs from your college work. Have a look at your books if there's anything technical that you need to look up. There's Google. It's good.
Yes.
Open Tuition was a good website that I used to use for ACCA.
Okay.
So for anyone thinking about doing accountancy and so on, I'd recommend that. So,
and would you recommend anybody going into accountancy these days?
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting career to go into. Obviously, don't get sidetracked by the fact that most people call you boring.
Yes.
And admittedly, it probably is boring work to begin with, but as you develop, you do end up with doing a lot more interesting work. So.
And there's a lot more client-facing work and speaking to clients, and it's and engendering those relationships, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good if you're sociable, then it does make a difference as well. But then again, also if you're not sociable, there's a place for you, because there's a lot of technical sort of analysis work that you can just get your head into. It's good.
Great. Yeah. So you're head of the audit team here, and you've got a number of members of your team. What exactly is an audit involved, to explain to our listeners?
Okay, so an audit is a more in-depth progression of accounts, essentially. So obviously when you're doing accounts prep, you're just getting the figures from your client, preparing it into the accounts, and sending that off to company's house. Done. An audit is a lot more focused on the detail and making sure that the figures are valid. There's a few, they call them assertions, that you'd look for as well. And you just so you're just doing an independent review of the figures, and the disclosures as well in the notes to make sure that they're correct. Normally it's for the bigger clients who need it, as statutory because of the size they are. But some people have a voluntary audit because they might need it for borrowings or credit rating.
Yeah.
Suppliers might ask them to have audited accounts. And there's other reasons as well. Some people might be getting bonds that help them, so they would require an audited set of accounts as well. But yeah, we'd go a lot more into the detail. We give the client recommendations of controls that we see.
So we actually add value back to the clients as well.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's not just something that they have to process to go through.
No.
We actually, when you're doing an audit, you can actually come back and say, well, we think these improvements would make your business better.
Yes.
So it is an added value service as well as having to be. Sometimes the clients might see it as painful to have to go through. But it's maintaining that right sort of relationship to ensure that things run smoothly and so on.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, we do get a mixture of clients some who love us being there, give us a cup of tea every hour.
Yeah.
Some who chuck us in a horrible room. No tea or coffee, no heating. Just they want rid of us.
So if you're watching and we have to do an audit, we come to you. Please give us a cup of tea and
please
a biscuit. That would be great. Okay. So what would you say is the main attributes you need to be an accountant or especially an auditor?
So attention to detail is definitely something that you would require. Like you can't just sort of, come in, glance at something and go, oh yeah, that's done and walk off. Again, like I say, be sociable because a lot of audits is client facing. We will go to the clients rather than doing it in the office. And you're speaking to them face to face. And giving them advice and asking them a lot of queries. So being sociable and a nice person to be around is definitely going to help the service.
Yes.
Mathematical background is going to help. I mean, I did maths and business, so it kind of screamed finance to me. But there's a lot of numbers involved. Don't get me wrong.
And we're always told to have professional scepticism when we're actually doing an audit. Do you explain to people watching or listening to this what that actually means? Okay,
so you would go to an audit and obviously you're checking the validity of the figures. So if you go with professional scepticism, you kind of go in with the mind that you're going to find something wrong. So rather than let's hope it's all right and we can just get through this easily. So you're looking for items that would be overstated or understated to make the balance sheet and the profit and loss look better.
And we're always looking for third-party verification of lots of the balances and figures that we're looking at as well, just to make sure we just don't take what the client says for granted, basically. So, having such a stressful job, how do you actually relax?
So I love music, so me and my other half go to a lot of gigs. Sometimes he surprises me with people that I've never even heard of. He's not done that recently actually because of COVID, so I'll have to nudge him. And I swim a lot, at the end of the day, at the start of the day. It's a good way of washing the day off actually.
Fantastic.
So I'm actually, I've challenged myself to swim a whole marathon this month. Not in one, that'd be crazy.
Put me to shame.
But to be fair, it's crazy enough. I'm having to swim a lot every day, so
right.
But it's good. Seems to work for now, so that'll do.
So how do you see generally the accountancy profession going in future? What sort of ideas do you think the way it actually will progress? Because we've seen a lot of talk about new technology coming into the industry. How do you see that affecting the way the profession will go forward?
I think a lot of the profession at the moment, especially with all the scandal with the Big Four, is sort of looking at going concern and a lot of fraud, especially in the audit kind of profession. So technology-wise, there's new technology coming up all the time, so it's going to be a case of ensuring that does, give an advantage to businesses and so on, and if necessary, whether we can audit that and make sure that the technology is doing the right thing.
Because we often hear of clients introducing new systems and procedures throughout the year, so we have to check. We have to do all our checks on the new procedures and mind the old procedures and so on. And it may well be the new technology is coming in. They're putting in a new accounting system or new software or whatever it is, and we have to start looking at that as well specifically.
So back what I was saying about controls and improvements. Obviously, if there's a new system, then you're going to have a look at that absolutely fresh.
Yeah.
And see whether there's anything that you can recommend, or if it's perfect, you never know. It might be running very smoothly already.
We wish.
Yeah, we wish. Yeah.
What's the commonest problem that your clients seem to mention to you if they're talking about issues that they come across?
So a lot of problems that I come across is stock related.
Okay.
So as part of an audit, if you've got stock and it's a material balance, meaning it's big enough to affect the accounts, we would attend a stock take at the year end. Now I've never attended a stock take where it's perfect at all. Now obviously you've got a lot of risks with stock that goes missing or pilferage from employees.
Sure. Yeah.
If it's desirable stock, you never know.
Yeah.
And then obviously the valuation of stock as well, because
Mm-hmm.
there could be a pile of stuff that's just absolutely wrecked, but
Yes.
they include it. So we would see that when we go to this, on the stock take.
Mm.
A lot of clients nowadays, back onto your technology kind
Yes.
of point, they're buying scanners.
Mm-hmm.
So these big warehouses, instead of sort of having to know where everything is,
Mm-hmm.
they've got a scanner, so they can just go up and scan the barcode and so
Okay.
on. And that's definitely improving sort of the controls around holding stock.
Sure.
Because a lot of the time there's meant to be 20,000 of bottles or something,
Yes,
and
yes.
there just isn't,
Okay.
and they just never have a reason why it's not, so they just
Okay.
have to adjust, and that's that. So
Fine.
yeah.
What's the most unusual situation you've actually come across as part of when you're doing an audit? Have you had any strange ones where you've come across and you thought that's very odd, or what's the worst experience you've had when doing an audit?
What a question. Not really audit related, but we've got if you're on about unusual things that have happened.
Yes.
So we've got a couple of clients who have some assets in data centres. So these are big sort of warehouses, lots
Sure.
of security.
Yeah.
They've got servers and technology and stuff in there. A lot of banks use them. I presume a lot of governments use them as well.
Yeah.
So in order to get in, you've got to basically sign your life away. So
Okay.
here's my ID, here's
Yeah.
my thumbprint,
Yeah.
Don't know who you're selling that to, but okay.
Yes.
And it must be to do with, the air not sort of getting polluted
Okay.
and so on to get in.
Okay.
So one way of getting in is thumbprint,
Mm-hmm.
and then you end up in this sort of tube, sort of, I don't know, like a circular little
really?
vat thing.
Okay.
So you're in the sliding doors, go in. You're meant to put your thumbprint on again, so then
Yes.
get out of that and get through. And I was stuck in there for like 10 minutes. It was horrendous. So the guys had to come in, just awful. So,
Okay.
and I did get my ID back, so that was
Right.
good.
Okay. You weren't
So-
arrested or anything
No,
like that.
no. Obviously, my
Didn't
thumbprint.
haul off the auditors to somewhere else.
No,
right?
no.
It's just another ploy to get rid of the auditors.
Yes, no cup of tea. Yeah, little
Yes.
small space. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
What do you consider the outlook is for businesses at the moment? I mean, we've had just hopefully coming out of the pandemic.
Yes.
COVID's hit a lot of businesses hard.
mhm.
No doubt we've all seen that as part of what we're doing. Do you, and now obviously with what's happening in Ukraine as well,
Yes.
which is absolutely terrible. How do you see the outlook for businesses generally? Do you think it's going to improve at all, or is it just the cost of living squeeze is just going to get more and more?
Yeah, I mean, it's all doom and gloom, isn't it, on
Yes.
the news, especially with Ukraine. It's awful. But what I've seen from businesses at the moment is they are improving post-COVID, which is
Mhm.
good to see. But although profits are improving, gross profits are definitely tight. The margins are tightening. We've got a lot of freight forwarders and manufacturers who deal a lot with containers from China,
Yes.
and the margin on those is just gone crazy. It's ridiculous. So
Mhm.
a container that would have cost $3,000, 2 years ago,
Yes.
even a year ago,
Yeah.
is now heading off to 20.
Yes.
So it's tough to make a decent gross profit margin, I think,
Mm-hmm.
after COVID because of that. And then obviously you've got HGV drivers being
Sure.
low, so
Yeah.
that's tightening it again. So a lot of it's freight. So
Mhm.
I think if you're in a business that doesn't require freight, then you're potentially doing okay. But
Mm.
if there's freight involved, definitely it's a struggle. And then obviously you've got the fuel crisis at the moment as well.
Sure. So finally, Rebekah, if you didn't do accountancy,
Yeah.
what would you have done?
I've not got the confidence on stage to be a jazz guitarist, but I
Right.
would have liked that. And I didn't have the commitment to be an Olympic swimmer. So I don't know, one of the two. If I could improve my confidence and my commitment, one of those two, I think.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks very much indeed for chatting
thank
to
you.
us this morning. I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of an insight into what we do at Harts, a little bit of an insight into our team and how an audit actually runs. So please join us soon for the next podcast and look forward to seeing you soon.